Hey guys, it's Leslie here with YYC Knit. So we're back with part 2 of our Learn to Knit series, and what I wanted to do is just continue on with learning how to do a purl stitch. So we've got, if you watched part 1, we've got we've learned how to cast on, and we've just been knitting back and forth. So on our set of circular needles, because when we go to look for our needle in our knitting bag, it's actually attached. So we're not going to get hung up on any of this wire for now. We're just going to be knitting on these 2 needles. So you don't need to concern yourself with, any of this. Just concentrate on the 2 needles that are on your project. So in knitting, we want to keep everything neat and tidy. We've got, as you can see, we've got all these little purl bumps here. So in what we're making, the type of fabric that we're doing here, this is called garter stitch. So we're knitting on both sides of our work. We're knitting down one side, we're turning our needle around, we're working a knit stitch down the other needle as well. So so this is kind of neat. So this is called garter stitch, and it's really, really pretty. Great for, your first scarf. It's got a little bit of cushiness to it. It's got some interest, and in this beautiful hand-dyed variegated yarn, it looks amazing. You can find this yarn on our website. It's called North Glenmore Park by YYC Knits. It's hand-dyed in our own kitchen, and it's 100% organic merino. So the animals are treated fairly, and it's a dream to work with. It's absolutely soft, next to your skin soft. Unlike this wool sweater that I'm wearing, I can wear wool, but if you do have a bit of sensitivities, and it really pills, this is just like Cascade, Cascade Eco Plus, and the feel of this compared to this is just night and day. This is so soft and absolutely splendid. I can put this on my kids right next to their skin, and they don't mention a word, and they do have sensitivity issues. So if I put a toque made out of the Cascade wool, non-merino, non-organic, they go crazy. They can't stand it. So so that's the difference. It runs about 25 cents a yard, and we're gonna stock this on a regular basis on our website, yycknits.com, in every color of the rainbow eventually, hopefully. So yeah, it's exciting. Anyways, so we've got all these little purl bumps. We're knitting a garter stitch, so we're knitting on both sides, which gives us this look of fabric. So let's just do a row of knit. So we're gonna start nice and neat. We're gonna go in with our needle. We're gonna go around and off, in and around and off. Hopefully you've had a chance to practice, and get to this point where you've got no yarn overs, you've got the same amount of stitches on your needles that you started with, and you're smooth sailing. So practice. You can start out with some cotton, a ball of cotton, and make yourself some dish rags, which are always handy. Some face cloths, that's always nice. So if you want to go that route too, then no matter what it looks like, you can definitely use it. So no worries there. So there you go. That's a great thing to start out with, is a dish rag. So we're going to turn our work here. Oh, we got a little bit of tangled hair going on. Okay, so we're going to turn our work around. Now, what I'm going to teach you here on part 2 of the video is I'm going to teach you how to do a purl stitch. And you're going to see what our fabric is going to start looking like when we're knitting on the front side and purling on the back side. We're going to end up with a fabric that is Stockinette, it's called. So we're on the back of our work now. The front of our work is always marked by the tail on the right hand side. So this is the front of our work, okay? That's the front. So we just knit across the front, and now we turn our work around. And these needles today they have a little bit of a more forgiving, these are really old. They have a little bit more of a supple, what do you call it, cord. So they're not going to give you any hassles. So we've got the back of our work, and we're going to know that this is the back of our work from here on in because we've got these purl bumps. So this is the purl side. So whenever we see these purl bumps from now on, we're going to know that this means to purl. So these little purls mean we're going to purl. So when we are going to learn to purl, we're going to have our yarn here attached to our ball. We're going to come from the back. Instead of going in to knit from front to back, we're going to come from the back to the front. Now, when we purl, we always want to have our yarn in the front of our work. So we're going to come from back to front. Our yarn is in the front, and we're going to do this. We're going to grab our yarn. We're going to go around our needle, around the back to the front. So everything's back to front on purl. Back to front. And we're just going to keep it going. So back to front, back to front, back to front. So everything's coming from the back. So we're actually knitting backwards. So if I was to put the camera on the other side, you would see that I'm knitting on the other side of my work. I'm just knitting. But from this side, we're doing what's called a purl stitch. So this is going to create a different looking fabric. So we're going from back to the front, around the needle from back to front, and through and off. Same as knitting on the other side, just from the reverse. We're going to turn our work around, and we're going to show you here. This is, there's no purl bumps here, okay? Our fabric is going to start to lay flat because we are now doing a stockinette stitch. So we're knitting on the front side and we're purling on the back. So we don't have any purl bumps here. We've got these V's now, and this is stockinette stitch. So this is how you would probably recognize. So we're going to knit. We know that we don't have purl bumps there, so we're going to knit. So this is where it gets a little tricky. Is we should be so confident in, sorry, my cable's right in front there. We should be so confident in our knit stitch that we can just switch our brain right back and do that stitch with our eyes closed. So I'm hoping that you got lots of practice in and you knit about 5 dish rags and you know what the knit stitch is. So we're not going to explain that again, because we explained that in part 1 of our video. So we're gonna knit to the end, and now you can see there's a difference. We don't have this funny purly bump ribbing anymore. We've got this amazing knit, so it's gonna just look like, you'll have to excuse the pills in my sweater, but it's just gonna look like that. It's just gonna be all knit stitch, which is stockinette. So here we go again. We're gonna turn our work. So here we are with these purl bumps. So we know that because we can see all these little bumps here, all these purls, these little purls, we know that this is our purl side of our work. We also know because the tail is on this side. if the tail was on the right hand side, we'd know this is the front of our work, and this is on the front we're going to knit. So we're going to turn our work around and we're going to purl. So we're going to scrunch up our knitting so that we're close to the end, so we're not fighting with it. We're going to pull this tail down. We're going to stick our needle in from back to the front. Our yarn is in the front of our work when we're purling. We're going to go around this needle from back to front, through and off, back to front, around from back to front, through and off. So we're purling. Always just keep your stitches. I'm trying to go slow so that you guys can see what I'm doing. If you've never done a purl stitch before, this is how it's done. So you're going to come in from back to front, go around from back to front, through and off. So you're transferring from one needle from your left hand needle to your right hand needle, all those stitches, one at a time, you're transferring them on to the right hand needle until there's none left on this needle. So we're going to turn our work around. We know that this is the front because the tail is down here on the right hand side. We've got stockinette stitch now, and actually if you're knitting a scarf, I prefer the look of the garter stitch. It adds a little bit more interest, but if you're knitting a sweater or a toque, or you want to, I mean, we need to know how to purl. So, you know, we've got some stockinette here. You can do ribbing like this. So you can do knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. You can do knit 3, purl 1 ribbing. So it's going to look like this here on the cuff of my sleeve. This is a knit 2, purl 2 ribbing. So you're going to have that stockinette and that garter together. Isn't that cool, actually? So this is part 2. This is the second stitch that you need to know in knitting. We know we're on the front of our work because the tail is down here on the right hand side. We know also because this is the flat side of our work. There's no purl bumps here. This is the stockinette stitch side. And if we turn our work around, you can see immediately we've got all these little purl bumps. So we know that we're on the knit side. So we're just going to knit all the way to the end. And transfer those stitches from the left needle to the right needle. It's a little tricky to keep it in the camera, but so we're going to transfer all those stitches over to the other needle. We're going to turn our work around. Now this is the stitch that I mentioned, this first stitch, which, you know, can be kind of confusing where to stick your needle. So I'm just going to clarify that before the end here, and hopefully it'll help. So we've got our little purl bumps here. So all our purl bumps. Our tail is on the left hand side, so we know this is the back of our work, and we know that we're going to purl here. If we want a stockinette, we know that we're going to purl because these are the purl bumps. So when we see the bumps, we're going to purl them. So we're going to pull this nice and tight. So there's there's one string going over the top of our needles, and that's where we're sticking our yarn. A lot of people, when they're learning, I've watched them, they stick their needle in here, and that's not where we're going. We need to just concentrate, we need to just focus our eyes on the stitches that are right on top of the needle. And this is where we're sticking our needle, right in there. We always want our yarn to be in the front of our work, in the front of our needle for our purl stitch. So we're going to put our needle in from back to front, and we're going to go around that needle from back to front and through and off. Back to front, through and off. You'll get comfortable however you feel you need to hold onto those needles. The more you practice, the more comfortable you'll feel with doing this. So hope that helps. This is the purl stitch, part 2 of our Learn to Knit series. And if there's something that you want to see, don't hesitate to shoot me an email. Check out our website, yycknits.com. You can send me a message from there. You can text me, shoot me over a pattern. You know, if you need some yarn suggestions, I can definitely let you know what would work that we stock online and help you out with your project as well. I'd love to see you growing in your knitting and knitting new things, new and beautiful things that you're really happy with. And so here is our stockinette stitch. So we went from our garter stitch, which is a little bit more marshmallowy. It's to this flat. As you can see, we've got all our little V's here. So these are all our little V's. And this is so fun. Because man, the sky's the limit now. Once you learn these 2 stitches, you are set for life. So this is the front of our knitting. We've got our tail right here. So I don't weave in this tail until the very end because that tells me where my front is. Also, I know I'm on the front because I've got my stockinette here. So I'm knitting the knits for stockinette stitch, and I'm purling the purls. So how cool is that? We've got our beautiful little scarf. You can make a scarf like this. You can, the sky's the limit. So just have fun with it. You can do garter, then stockinette, then garter, then stockinette. You can do 2 purls, 2 knits. You can just change it up. Just have fun with it. Practice, practice, practice. And if there's something you want to see next, let me know. But we've got this beautiful fabric that we've just made, and happy knitting. Enjoy your new talent. We'll see you next time. Thank you.